Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 64th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Vayigash, almost at the end of the book of Genesis. The Parsha starts out with Yosef telling his brothers he's still alive, and he wants to know if his father's still alive. And he sends the wagons to Yaakov, and then Yaakov and the 70 souls come with him back down to Egypt. Now, here the Torah says, chapter 46, when it mentions the people that came down with Yaakov to Egypt, it says he sent Yehudah ahead of him to Joseph to prepare ahead of him in Goshen, and they arrived in the region of Goshen. So here the Torah says that Yehudah goes ahead, that Yaakov sends him ahead in order to prepare the place of Goshen. Now Rashi there says in order to set up schools. That's what he set out to do. So there wasn't anybody there at the time, and since Egypt was steeped in tremendous amount of impurity and how they acted, etc., the first thing is they wanted to make sure that they were in a place, that they were separate from everyone else. So it says, Mori v'Rebbe Ravagon Ramosh Sternbach Shlita should be well. Parshas in his Sefer, in his book Chochmah V'Daz. He says that the Jewish people go down and Yehudah is sent ahead in order to find a separate place. Right? The whole purpose of finding a separate place is so that they'll be able to be separate. They'll have separate schools. They won't interact, so much with the people, and the place is filled with a tremendous amount of impurity. So, it makes sense that he would send them ahead to find a place where they're going to be separate. So he brings down as well, this is for all generations, that he says about the importance of a kollel and education for the sake of Jewish people. A kollel is where you have married men. After they get married, they sit and learn, and they get a stipend for learning. Usually the wife works, and the parents, in-laws, will help at least, for a certain amount of time, so the foundation of the house can be strong. And a kollel can definitely change, a city. And there are many places in America and other places all over the world that have these kollels with 6 families, 8 families, 10 families, sometimes more. And what they do is they learn, they learn and they teach in the community. And there have been many kollels that went to places where there was really nothing there. There wasn't any strong Jewish connection, in wherever they go, wherever they've been. Not all cases, but in many of them. And the people of the kollel, when their kids needed to be educated, started schools, and they taught there. And the kollel can really have a tremendous influence on the community. So Sternbach brings down from his Rebbe, Rav Gaon Moshe Schneider, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may his name be blessed. And he said it was common for him to say, in a place where there's a kollel, where there's advanced study for people, for people that are married, he says you see that the people of that place become B'nai Torah, that they actually become, more Torah observant, because of this, because of this influence. So we know how important the Torah is. We know how important, it is to learn Torah. But, if people think that, it's something, it's outdated, what do I need it for? Let these people do something important, with their lives. It's all, it's all theoretical. It doesn't do anything for the world. They'll say these people are sponges. Why should we donate to them? Why should we help them? They should really get jobs, get a degree. As he brings down, in the modern world, this is exactly what they'll say. And they'll say, these people are wasting their time. What are they doing? And, they should do something real, like, get a degree. There's a story, I know of somebody that was writing a book on tax law. Now, nothing against tax law. It doesn't matter, what he was getting, his PhD or whatever, whatever the case is. But when someone, goes for, let's say, a PhD, or in this case, the person was writing a book on tax law, all the physical needs were provided. They had housing, they got a stipend. Now, no one would ever say, oh, look, this person got a stipend, and he's being helped, to be supported because he's doing something important for the world. He's writing a book on tax law. Wow. Can't even tell you what that does for the world. No offense to anyone out there who's involved in tax law. Point is that, what's more important? Writing a book on tax law or learning Torah? Learning Torah is brought down. There is nothing more important. It upholds the world. Well, that'll negate tax law now, won't it? Or anything else. But when someone was writing a book on tax law and having his, meals provided for, housing provided for, getting a stipend, in order to survive, while doing it, no one ever said this guy's a sponge. This guy's a cockroach. Look what he's doing. He's sponging off of society. Let him get a real job. No one ever said such a thing. Look, he's writing a book on tax law. Yeah, a little bit different way of looking at things. Because in the modern world, they don't give respect to Torah. They don't give respect to Torah scholars. They go, oh, you're learning these ancient books. It doesn't have anything to do with society. You don't have anything to do with society. You don't have anything to do with anything. You're just learning about philosophy and about these antiquated laws that nobody does. Well, it's kept the Jewish people around for the last 3,000 years. Continue to keep the Jewish people going, even further than that. So people make a very fundamental mistake. First of all, they don't think learning Torah is so important, right? They think that, first of all, it's not an easy thing to do. People say, oh, you sit and learn Torah. So for many years, I had the ability to sit and learn, in the morning, in the afternoon, at night as well. People said, oh, you don't do anything. Oh, you just sit and learn Torah. You try it. Try it for a day. Try it for 2 days. I'm not even talking 10 hours a day. Try it for 2 hours a day. And I remember, many days that, at the end of the day, my hand was just pounding. Why? Because it taxes the brain, right? It teaches how to think, teaches how to analyze, but it also teaches how, practical laws, what you have an obligation to do. Now, obviously, we think in the Torah world that that's important. And that has to be perpetuated to the next generation. It has to be given over. So, if everyone would stop learning and they wouldn't learn after they're married, the Torah would be forgotten. You wouldn't have Torah scholars today. So, Rashi says in 2 places by the sacrifices, by the Levites, when the Levites are supposed to start serving in the temple. One place it says they should start when they're 25. Another place says it should start when they're 30. So there's a discrepancy of 5 years. So Rashi says, why is there a discrepancy? Because you give a person 5 years to learn. You give him 5 years, post high school to see if he can become something in learning. That's a good barometer, to see what he has the ability to do. Now, there'll be people that'll say, he's gonna be behind. If he ever wants to get a job, he's got to get a degree. Well, it's not necessarily so true. But, people say he's gonna get behind. What's he doing? What's he doing wasting his time? Etc. So, we'll put that argument to the side for a second. But if you want to test somebody to see what they're going to know, if they're going to be something in learning Torah, you got to give them time. So, well, didn't they learn for 18 years? They already learned enough. So, when a kid is 18, he's just starting to figure it out. He's just starting to put things together, etc. So you stop him in his formative years of learning, you're going to totally stunt his growth. You got to give him an opportunity. 18 years, okay, so for the last 3 or 4 years, or 5 years, he's gotten a taste, right? He's still finding his way, because he has to learn how to learn, and learning how to learn means you have to be taught, right? Talmud is not something you just pick up and learn. You have to learn from a teacher. You have to know, grammatical points, how things are said, how things are inflexed, so to speak, and how to learn. You have to know how to think. So at the beginning, you go much slower. Right? You have to analyze. Yeah, commentaries may disagree. And if they disagree, who do we hold like? Are there any, what's the difference between them? Does it mean anything in Jewish law? If they disagree or not. So these are important things that have to be taught. It takes time. Right? It's not an overnight thing. And at the beginning of a person's, learning, so to speak, you don't throw him out, of the study hall, because at that point he's not ready. Right? He's definitely not ready. You have to see what he can become. So, you have people that'll learn for a number of years, including in marriage, right? For the first number of years, of marriage, in order that, one reason to see what they become, and second is that when a person gets married, he wants to start, his house on, based on Torah. It's not exactly the same, if a person steeped in Torah and really learning and really growing, than if a person had a job and learned what he could, right? It's not the same. If a person has to work, he has to work. I'm saying in an ideal world, in the Orthodox system today, in the ultra-Orthodox system, many learn, for a few years at least, after they're married. But the point here is not just the importance of Torah, but the importance of starting a community based on Torah. So what does Yaakov do? He sends Yehudah down. He sends him first to scout out the land. Right? And it wasn't scouting out the land, as Rashi points out, it wasn't scouting out the land to see if the land was good for grazing, for their animals, or to see if they can make livelihood there, or anything else. The whole point, Rashi says, is that you have to set up schools, right? You have to produce rabbis there. You have to produce Torah scholars. You have to have people learning Torah, because that changes the place. Doesn't matter where it is. So in Sin City, which is what Egypt was, totally steeped in immorality, Yaakov says, if I have to go down there and I have to leave the land of Canaan, right, the land of Israel, then we're going to live in our own community. We're going to be able to hold according to our own laws and do what we need to do according to what God wants. So, when there was a Jewish community established and then people moved in, it's much stronger, right? Then you can help build the community. But in a place where there is no community structure, right, that they didn't have schools set up, it's a disaster. If you look what happened to America in the late 1800s, right, Jews started flocking to America, getting away from religious persecution in Europe. So what happened was, many of them came, they didn't want to have anything to do with Judaism, right? So they threw their tefillin, their phylacteries, whatever they are, right? They threw tefillin overboard, and they didn't want to have anything to do with Judaism. So what happened was you had all these secular Jews, and you didn't have an infrastructure of an Orthodox community, which has been the base of Judaism for the last 2,000 years. Because up until the last 250 years, all Jews were basically Orthodox. That changed with the Reform movement, and then the conservative movement. But up until 250 years ago, everybody was the same. Right? They were all Orthodox. That's what there was. If change would be better and the whole system would be changed, that you could pass it down, right? So, okay, then, maybe we can have a discussion. But that's the way the world's been set up for the last 3,000 years. And it works. So, when they got to America, though, problem was there was no infrastructure, right? So you had a very small Orthodox community. So when the great rabbis came over from Europe, there weren't any like strong, yeshivas, girls' schools, etc. that were set up. So the infrastructure in America took a lot longer, to set up. So, when you're talking the late 1800s, early 1900s, the community took years. It took years to, take kids out of public school, set up yeshivas. You had Torah giants like Rav Aaron Kotler Zatzal that started the great yeshiva in Lakewood, New Jersey. And he came up with a novel idea that, men, should sit and learn after they're married. for a number of years. So finding girls for these men wasn't easy, right? That, parents didn't want that. Parents wanted their kids to get a real job, get a real education. Don't sit and learn. That's not a real job. You're not doing anything, so to speak. So that was a tremendous novel idea, that saved American Jewry in many ways, and spread to other cities. Because what he did, after, people had learned for many years, he sent them out to different communities. And they set up different kollels, right, where these married men would sit and learn, and then, teach and learn with people in the community. So he sent them, he sent a number of people to different communities. So where he placed them, the community totally changed. So, as Rav Moshe Schneider here points out, that when you have something like that, it changes the system. It changes the whole city. Because then you have schools, you have people that are getting into Torah, that they want to learn more, right? They give that over to their kids, give it over to their spouses. It's a tremendous thing. That didn't exist. Right? In America, it didn't exist. It was like a wasteland. So it had to be built up, but it took time. Right? It took a lot of time, to build that up. And now, you see in many places, in the States and other places as well, that, these places are thriving. Yeah, many yeshivas, many girls' schools, and it's definitely in vogue today, for a woman to want to marry someone who's going to sit and learn, right, for however long, they're going to sit and learn. But this is what the foundation is, and these are what the schools are giving over. Now, it doesn't work in every situation, but that is the mentality, because we want to produce Torah scholars for the next generation. We want to set up houses that are going to be strong, based in Torah for future generations. And we see by the vast majority it works. And that cities change. And that more and more people come in, to these kollels. They learn, for a certain amount of time. The rabbis there that learn there, they tutor other people. They learn with other people. They go to other houses, and bring people in, to learn with. They do tremendous things. It definitely turns the community over, in a major way. It's a unifying thing that everybody can have a part in. But when it's strong, it's unbelievable. This is what keeps the Jewish people going, right? You got places that have a tremendous amount of intermarriage and total lack of education, totally being uninspired because, their parents were uninspired. Their rabbis are uninspired. Let's go to the Torah portion of the week class. And now today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to speak about Joseph and the right? You fall asleep in the middle of your own class. So, you have to give it over in a way, that's enjoyable, but showing people a whole world that they've never been exposed to. And the only reason they haven't been exposed to it, their parents didn't expose them to it. And their parents didn't expose them, them to it, to a certain extent. So it's been tremendously watered down. But the parents say, okay, I want to give my kids somewhat of a Jewish education, so I'll give them a half-baked education. But there's so much more of what Torah is, which doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Kabbalah. Right? The ones, many people I come in contact with say, I want to learn about the spiritual world, and how it all works. And yeah, it is interesting. It's brought down, a person should learn Kabbalah till he's over 40 and his stomach is filled with Torah. Why? So I give a very good parable. If you learn higher mathematics, right? If you learn calculus, you can't do calculus without algebra, right? Or trigonometry, right? Calculus, you're not going to get it. Why not? Because you don't have the base. So if you don't have the base, how are you going to learn something more advanced? Same thing. If you don't have the base of what Torah is, and understand it, very well, you're not going to understand Kabbalah anyway. So forget about Kabbalah. But the tradition, that we have and why we do what we do, absolutely fascinating, Even though, some people say, it's boring and who cares about an ox who gores another ox and who has to pay and, but it has to come alive. Not just an ox goring someone else's ox. What if a, person causes someone else damage? How much does it apply? Meaning, what does he have to pay? Does he have to pay the damage where the person got injured, where the person can't work? Right? All these, factors involved based on what the Torah says. So, it can be technical. It definitely can be technical. And it's certainly not easy. Right? A person has to think. You can't read and learn Torah like you do a newspaper. It doesn't go. You have to think. And the more knowledge you have, so the more difficult it becomes. Because if you have more knowledge, then you can start asking different types of questions. Not just, what does the Torah say? What does this mean? What do these words mean? But now I have to see, okay, I understand what the words mean. Now I can look at the commentaries and see what the commentaries say. And then you have to figure out, why are they saying what they're saying? How are they learning what the text says? Are they learning simple explanation? Is it like a homiletic interpretation? Like exactly, how are they learning? Then you look at some of the other commentators and say, nah, it's a contradiction from this. And they have to learn it out a different way. And, it's intellectual stimulation. But a person can't learn Torah like my Rebbe says, like a frummer student. You got to learn it because it has absolutely everything to do with life. Even if, certain things may not apply, nonetheless, we have to learn it at a level where it inspires us, and it can be hard to do that, if we don't, focus, properly. At the same time, it's a mind-boggling experience, and certainly an uplifting experience. But you can't learn it like any other discipline. Because if you learn it like mathematics, there's no question if you're learning Torah at all. It's like you're just reading a newspaper. It doesn't have an effect on your life. Torah should absolutely have an effect on your life. Even though the Talmud says if a person doesn't learn for the sake of heaven, right, let him learn not for the sake of heaven, because in the end he'll start learning for the sake of heaven. Meaning he'll learn for the right reasons, even if at the beginning he's not learning for the right reasons. Right? Maybe he's learning because he doesn't want to fry in hell forever. Maybe he's learning because that's what everyone else does. Maybe he's learning for, any number of reasons. It doesn't matter because, eventually, even if he's learning for the wrong reason, he'll get so into it, it'll end up being the right reason anyway. Right? Again, not always. There are other things that can, take a person out of it, etc. But it's crucial. Right? It's crucial, to know what to do. Right? We have to know within Jewish law what we're allowed to do, not allowed to do. When it comes to prayer, it comes to kashrus, it comes to other things, practical things on a daily basis. At the same time, even though we have to get to the practical things, we got to think. Right? We also have to think, not just getting to what the law is, but I have to think. We see where it's derived from, what the differences of opinion are. And how it all works and how it's put together. That's a tremendous thing. Some people have more difficulty with it, less difficulty with it, but in either case, that is what has solidified communities over the last, 60, 70 years. Even though it was a novel idea to set up these type of, these kolos where, married men, sit and learn, get a stipend, etc. And they build themselves up in learning, eventually maybe to go teach or do other things, but they're given an opportunity. And that, and a Torah home looks different, definitely looks different from someone who's steeped in Torah, someone who's, learning all day, and someone who's only learning when they can. Now, it doesn't mean someone who's only learning when they can because they have to provide for their home, doesn't mean Torah's not important to them. Right? They have other obligations, that they have to do. But even for them, they have to enjoy learning Torah when they can. They have to set aside time every day, to do that. And, regardless of what else they're doing, doing in the world. So they have to give over to their families. They have to have something strong to give over. If you're, even if a person works and the only thing you're thinking about all day is work, and that's the most important thing. Now, I'm not saying it's not important. Obviously, a person has to provide for their family. That there's no question. At the same time, at the same time, person has to know what his focus is. And that the only time you're allowed to work, right, is, if you need to provide for your family. When you're done providing for your family, when your day is done, whenever that is, you got an obligation to learn. So it doesn't matter if a person's wife had it hard or whatever, she got to send him out to the base medrash. She has to send him out to the study hall. That's the only way it's permissible. Right? Otherwise he's got to sit and learn. So we understand the importance of learning, right? That we've sort of spoken about a number of times. And, here, it's not just about learning. It's about setting up the whole system. It's about being in a community that doesn't have anything, and you're setting up the system in order that that community should grow. Because if not, we know what the result is. The result is death, spiritual death. And, even if we're not putting someone's not putting a gun to our heads, and killing us because we're Jews, we're doing it to ourselves spiritually. So anybody who lives in a community or nearby an Orthodox community certainly should take advantage, of that, and if they can learn with someone privately or in a class or whatever the case is, that's going to change a person if they wanted to. You can also, again, learn Torah like a monkey learns and just say things over, but it doesn't change your life. That's not learning Torah. That's learning something that is like any other subject. You're doing it to sharpen your mind. Well, Torah's not about sharpening your mind only. Torah's about changing yourself. Torah's about getting instructions in how to live your life. So you have to know how to learn. Right? You have to know what's a question, what's not a question. But you cannot treat it like any other discipline. Once you do it like that, you take Torah out the window. That's not what it is. Right? It's like another subject. And that we have to be careful of. Because sometimes we can get so caught up, what we're doing, we forget it should have an effect on us. Right? And it should change us. Torah's not a magic wand. But at the same time, if a person wants success in learning, as my Rebbe's brought down from Moshe Schneider's also, that Rav Schneider would always say that, if someone wants to have success in learning, he would tell the students of his yeshiva that you have to be on time to pray. Right? Prayer goes a long way in learning. Right? And it has to be sincere. A person just can't, go to a place that prays the fastest, just get it over with and that's it. Prayer is also a part of Torah. Most people aren't necessarily aware of that. Right? You pray, men, all you men out there, you have an obligation to pray 3 times a day. You're not a robot. You're not praying just to get it over with. Right? We got to live inspired. That's my Hasidic side, that's coming up. We got to, sing and dance a little bit. Get more inspired, but want to change and become great people. That's our goal. That is, we're trying to reach our potential. Whatever that's going to be. But, again, there are times when we'll be more inspired. There'll be times where we'll be less inspired. At the same time, we have to be inspired. And we have to find people or classes that inspire us. Because Torah is very technical. Yeah, we can speak about, all kinds of interesting philosophical questions, about the Messiah coming, when resurrection is it before the world to come, after the world to come, what is the world to come, what about angels, what's their role, all these esoteric ideas. They are interesting ideas. At the same time, we have to know what it means to be a Jew as well, right? Anyone who wants to convert or anyone who is a Jew, for that matter, you have to know what to do. You have to know about making blessings, about keeping Shabbos, and the festivals, and what we're supposed to get out of things. It's not just about philosophy. Philosophy is nice, but there are a lot of technical aspects, a lot of Picayune laws that come out from learning that we have to do. That is an absolute obligation to do. So, it's hard because, there's a tremendous emphasis, especially in the ultra-Orthodox community, there's a tremendous emphasis on Jewish scholarship. Right? In other words, the most important thing, a male should be doing is learning Torah. Now, if he can't learn Torah, or he can't teach, or doesn't want to teach, or whatever, and he goes out to the work field, okay. Right? You're allowed to work, certainly, for, to be mafarnes your family, to have a livelihood, right? That's certainly permissible. But that's not all life is. Life's not all about just feeding your family, even though, a person has ups and downs, it's easier, it's harder, right? At the same time, Torah has to be the essence, right? Torah has to be the backbone. It has to be the essence of what we're doing. And I think that's the reason why the ultra-Orthodox community, has produced over the years more Torah scholars than any other community out there. Last year or a year and a half ago, here in Israel, they appointed 22 rabbinic court judges. 15 out of 22 came from the ultra-Orthodox camp. That's about 58%, 59%. So, what about the other camps? What's the story there? The other camps do not emphasize learning Torah as much in Torah scholarship as much as the ultra-Orthodox camp. They'll say it's important, but they'll also say it's important to have 2 feet in the secular world, and do things in the secular world, and have a quarter of a foot in the religious world. So many people, will come out cracked that way, but they won't produce as many Torah scholars. Doesn't mean they don't have Torah scholars. But 58%, is significant. Statistics don't lie. You can manipulate them. But in this case, 15 out of 22, you want to say it's protexia, people have connections, it's about scholarship. They're looking for the best people, the most qualified people. It has nothing to do with buying anybody off or anything else. You got to be qualified. And if you're not qualified, they're not going to hire you. So, therefore, the emphasis has to be, or should be, on Torah scholarship. If not, you try and straddle both worlds, it doesn't work. Right? It absolutely doesn't work, because the evil inclination, is in the secular world is very strong. Very, very strong. Give us any number of reasons why we can't learn, we shouldn't learn. Any number of things that will take us away and will distract us. Right? That's the evil inclination's job. So a person has to be focused. And if we see that these schools have an impact, in communities, bringing people closer to Torah, educating people, etc., then it has a tremendous, tremendous value. And people can't say, oh, they're not doing anything, whatever. Either you believe in Torah or you don't. If you believe in Torah, you believe it upholds the world. So we should get more people to sit and learn. Right? We should raise more money to do that. Right? People say, oh, there's so many people sitting and learning. Yeah, it's like half of 1%. Right? Even if you would say there were 50,000 people over the age of 25 sitting and learning, it's a joke. Maybe it's 10,000, if that. Being generous. Very generous. So if you take on 50,000 Jews, 50,000 people over the age of 25, 14.5 million Jews, you're talking about like 0.01. You say, wow, look at everybody sitting and learning. Look at all these sponges. 0.01%. So we should be jumping up and down saying, what can we do to get more people out there? We got to go raise money, do other things for that. This is the only solution, to stop the tide of intermarriage and assimilation. Because if the Jews are attached to Torah, they're not going to go astray. They're not going to look, in different things. Now, it doesn't mean that people don't go sour. You can have that also, right? And, numbers are rising in different ways. But at the same time, we see for the vast majority, Torah works. Right? And this is what sticks. And this is what's been going on for the last 3,000 years. So, again, most people know, if you've seen a number of my videos, most people know I don't care what philosophy is, what a person's philosophy is. If it can't be passed down, I'm not interested. Someone will say, wow, oral tradition's this, and it's false, and, we believe in other things, and whatever. Great. Right? You want to be a Karaite? Go speak to the 20 Karaites left in the world. 50 if you're lucky. Go speak to these other people that believe in whatever. What's going to be the next generation? So, someone told me recently, that really doesn't matter. It's what a person believes in and what the truth is. Well, we believe the Torah is true. We believe oral tradition is true. And we believe that it works, because it does. So if we're going to be here in the next generation, and, you have in Orthodox families, people may say because of high birth rate, etc. But if you have 90%, 95% continuing on in the next generation, be able to pass that down, that seems it's pretty successful. Does that mean there aren't any issues? No, we have our own issues. Right? There are a number of issues. At the same time, it works. There's no other system out there that works. You want to believe in fallen angels? You want to try and show different places in the Torah it shows that angels have free will? So, go do it. Judaism doesn't believe in that, but okay, go ahead and do it. But at the end of the day, so what? You want to have that belief system, you're going to be a fossil. You want to be a fossil? You can be a fossil. So someone told me, continuity doesn't matter. Well, if continuity didn't matter, and we let Reform and conservative Jews do whatever they want, destroy Judaism, there wouldn't be anything left, would there be? There wouldn't be any Jews left. Do you agree? Nod if you agree. Do you agree that if you have 90% intermarriage rate or 70-80% intermarriage rate, total assimilation and lack of Torah knowledge, that Judaism won't survive? Nod yes or no. Yes. That is what's going to happen. And Judaism will disappear. Now, that doesn't go so well for the survival of Judaism. Disappearance is never good. So someone makes, such a stupid statement, right, and says, oh, it doesn't matter continuity. Of course it does. You won't be here. Right? Your next generation disappears. How can continuity not be important? So again, it has nothing to do with philosophy. Right? Absolutely zero to do with philosophy. We can argue philosophy. You want to try and prove to me beyond the shadow of a doubt that there are fallen angels? Okay, bring me the swords and I'll knock them off one after another. You can try and do that. I'll stand according to Jewish tradition. I'll go according to what the rabbis tell us. Etc. But at the end of the day, if that's what, we're holding to, and that's what works, and that's what gets passed down to the next generation, I don't care about anything else. Which side you want to be on? You want to disappear? Believe in fallen angels. Disappear. You're going to disappear. There'll be different groups in every generation. Right? Some believe in this, some believe in that. Philosophically, it doesn't matter. Philosophically, it's totally irrelevant. What matters is what is in the next generation. Is there a next generation? If there isn't, what do I care what your philosophy is? It's kind of like a mule. Right? A mule's a hybrid between a donkey and a horse. There's only one problem. One problem with the mule. Right? The one problem with the mule is sterile. You want to be part of something sterile? Okay. But the bottom line, of all this is, either the Torah is true and I'm obligated to keep it, or it's not and it's make-believe. There's nothing in between. Either you go one way or you go the other way. But keep in mind, if you go one way, you are going to disappear. If you go in the way of Torah's fantasy, you are going to disappear spiritually. You, your family, and all future generations. That's what's out there. Now, I'm not saying a person has to, keep Torah only because they're afraid they're going to fry in hell forever. That's not going to be a true deterrent. But at the same time, Person says, well, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Get answers. Find out. If God spoke on Mount Sinai, what does he want from me? What is the purpose? What am I doing here? What is, why was the world created? What do spiritual forces do? What's the purpose of angels? How does divine providence work? These are serious questions. Right? What about reincarnation? What about the fact that God created evil? And he allows evil to run rampant. Righteous people suffer. And evil people have it easy. Yeah, these are real questions. See, most people aren't even thinking necessarily in those terms. They just say, it's too much. I can't do it. It's too hard. But I don't think God has higher expectations. We can't live in a world that's that shallow. Or ourselves are that shallow. You got to put our best foot forward in whatever way God wants us to. Right? But you have to get answers. You have to at least search. At least see what's going on and what's out there. So someone once told me, not everybody can be Orthodox. Most people are lazy. That's really the bottom line. And they want to give in to their desires, and they don't want to change. So what I'm putting out there is, and this isn't anything new, because I say it a lot, and that is, doesn't matter what your desires are. Question is, what's true? Is something true or it's not true? If it's not true, you get a free pass. And you can't throw out a question and say, why did the Holocaust happen? Well, I got a great book. It's called Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. You want to read it? No. It's just a question I asked to make rabbis fidget. Okay, move on. See, most people aren't even asking the questions. Not even interested in the questions. You know why? You know why? Because their heart is so stuffed up with garbage, they need a snorkel in order to breathe. They don't care. Right? They're apathetic. Like trying to start a Humvee with a 9-volt. Good luck. Ain't gonna work. So, we have to dig in. God didn't put us on this world just to make life easy. We have to fight. We have to want it. We have to see how it's relevant to our lives. How many times have I heard of, these antiquated laws, they have no relevance to our lives. Did you ever learn about it? No. You interested in learning about it? No, I just know it has nothing to do with our lives. I'll give an example, a graphic example. Somebody makes a Hanukkah party. Right? You have a Hanukkah party. And most of the people at your Hanukkah party are non-Jews. Right? Intermarried. The whole purpose of Hanukkah is fighting against the Greeks. And living with this Greek mentality. I'm okay, you're okay, be part of our gymnasiums. You want to be a Jew at home, that's fine. Go to university with us, go to college with us, go to our movies, go to our sporting events, do all these things, leave your Hebrew name at the door. So let me ask a very potent question. So if you're a family like many, that the majority of people are intermarried, and maybe you're probably going to have more non-Jews at this Hanukkah party than actual Jews. Isn't that the opposite of what Hanukkah is? They say it's the custom, it's what I do in my heart that matters. It's hypocrisy. It's a joke. Eat latkes and donuts with everything that goes against what the Torah says. Because everyone will agree. Even the most far out, whacked out Jew will know. Deep in his heart, he knows. You're not allowed to marry a non-Jew. I don't care how you swing it. You want to say it was only for that generation, the rabbis didn't really mean, the Torah didn't really mean it, it's only this, it's only that. It's the end of Jewish survival. Judaism will disappear. If that trend continues at that level. Except for us. Except us fanatics. Right? Us Orthodox Jews. So, you make yourself feel good, eat a few latkes, have a donut, or 2 or 3, light the menorah. But isn't that whole thing just a joke? Isn't it about, it's family time, and family's family, and it doesn't matter if there's intermarriage, doesn't matter if there are non-Jews there, doesn't even matter if it's on the wrong day. They'll make the family Hanukkah party, not on Hanukkah. Wow. It's kind of silly, isn't it? It's the thought that counts. See, we're still Jewish a little bit. Someone will say, why are you harping on the negative? What are they saying? At least they made a Hanukkah party. At least they feel some affinity to Judaism. You're always so negative. And why are you screaming? I like to. But, in this case, what you're doing is a desecration of God's name. You're making a mockery of a travesty of a sham. That's what you're doing. Right? When I used to go to camp, someone said something stupid. They would say, someone would say, learn the rules, play the game, practice. Right? So you want to make a Hanukkah party like that? Learn the rules. Right? What does the Torah say? What's Hanukkah about? Play the game. Get inside. Do what you need to do, what the Torah wants from you. Practice. Learn. Go learn. Do not be an Amaretz. Do not be ignorant and just spew out things. They have no idea what you're talking about. Because there are a lot of Torah scholars out there that know plenty of Torah. And people come out and say, I think this and I think that. What's your basis? Because I think it. You got any sources? Let's discuss the sources. Again, is the Torah true? Or is it make-believe? Are you open-minded? Or you're not? If you're not open-minded, there's nothing to talk about. There's no discussion. But keep in mind one thing. You say, I don't have to be open-minded. This is the way I want to live my life. Okay. Realize there are going to be consequences. And the consequences are going to be forever. After a person dies after 120 years, you're going to get judged. You'll be judged on what your kids do. And if you didn't give them a proper education, kids go in a different direction, you're in big trouble. It's not just about punishment in the next world. Because I don't believe in the next world, and when I die, I'm only going 6 feet under. Let's hope you're right. According to my sources, that's totally not true. There's payback. A person's soul can come back to this world because, for what they've done in this world. But if you've spiritually obliterated yourself, and you've done it to your family, and you have a family Hanukkah party on the wrong day, or even on the right day, and the majority of people there are non-Jews, and here you go lighting the menorah, think about one thing. Is that action at this time, and what I'm doing, does it go in accordance with what Hanukkah really is? Does it go in accordance with what God wants? And how we set up the world? So my answer will be, sorry. It's not what God wants. How do you know? Because there's a whole Torah written on it. There's an oral tradition. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot to understand. And at the same time, imagine a person lived their life, they didn't have any of this. And they lost out. Because they were lazy. And they wanted to give in to their desires. Yeah, God knows what He was doing when He created the world. And He made the world a tremendous place of distraction. But He also gave you the ability to learn Torah. So Yehudah is sent by Yaakov to say, we're not part of this world. We don't want to be part of these people. We're going to be separate. That's what Judaism is. We are separate from everybody else. And if we are separate from everyone else, and we have our own laws and our own customs, and we sit and we learn and we pass it down, that's what the Torah is. That's what God wants. Just want to remind people that I also give a class, my Intro to Kabbalah class, every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, New York time. We're holding about divine providence, how it works. We spoke about reincarnation, purpose of man, why God created the world, Purpose of the Nations, etc. every Tuesday, 9 o'clock. I also give Noahide classes and conversion classes. Take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion, on Facebook, and Beyond Noahides. Take a look at my blog at orthodoxconversion.com. Anyone wants to contact me, Rabbi Chaim Kaufman, gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. I also do twice a week a question-answer session, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Usually, people can ask their questions, and we have a lot of fun with a lot of different things that people ask and see where it goes, and etc. Wishing everyone a great Shabbos.